No AI system has ever been trained specifically on the world's crop circles. No published study, no named lab, no verified dataset exists behind the viral claim. Yet the story keeps spreading anyway. An unofficial team supposedly running thousands of formations through a pattern recognition model never built for this. Whatever it reportedly turned up still has people questioning 50 years of accepted history. Crop circles are large, geometric patterns formed when the stalks of a growing crop, usually wheat or barley, get bent over and flattened in a deliberate shape rather than trampled at random. Viewed from the ground, most crop circles look like nothing more than a strange, flat patch in a field. Viewed from above, the same formation can reveal a perfect circle, a ring, or in more recent decades, an intricate geometric design that looks almost impossible to create without machinery. Researchers estimate that roughly 10,000 crop circles have been documented worldwide since the phenomenon first captured public attention, though reports describing similar flattened patches in fields stretch back centuries. The earliest, often cited historical reference comes from a 1678 English pamphlet titled The Mowing Devil, or Strange News Out of Hertfordshire, which describes a farmer who refused to pay a mower's asking price for cutting his oat field and joked that the devil himself should do the job instead. According to the pamphlet, flames appeared in the field that same night, and by morning the oats had been laid flat in unnaturally neat, circular patterns, cut with a precision the pamphlet claimed no ordinary laborer could match. More than 2 centuries later, in 1880, an amateur British scientist named John Rand Capron wrote a letter to the respected journal Nature, describing circular patches of flattened wheat he had personally examined on a farm in Surrey, following a period of unusually violent local storms. Capron proposed that the circles likely resulted from what he called cyclonic wind action, an early attempt at a natural, scientific explanation rather than a supernatural one. Reports like these show that people have been noticing and puzzling over strange, flattened patterns in fields for a very long time, well before anyone had coined the modern term crop circle at all. Studies of crop circle locations in the United Kingdom show that reported formations are not scattered randomly across the countryside. They consistently appear near roads, near areas with denser populations, and near well-known cultural heritage sites, including Stonehenge and the nearby stone circles at Avebury in Wiltshire. That clustering pattern alone hints at something important about how these formations actually get made. A phenomenon caused by wind, weather, or any other natural force acting independently of human choice would have no reason to consistently favor locations near roads and famous landmarks. A phenomenon created by people, on the other hand, would show exactly this kind of pattern, since easy access and a built-in audience matter enormously to whoever is doing the work. Understanding why that pattern exists means going back to the 2 men widely credited with kicking off the entire modern phenomenon. Doug Bower and Dave Chorley, 2 friends from Southampton, England, later admitted that their inspiration traced back to a 1966 newspaper report describing a supposed UFO sighting near Tully, Queensland, Australia, where witnesses claimed a flying saucer had left behind a flattened, circular patch of reeds in a swamp. Bower, a lifelong enthusiast of UFO stories, found himself wondering whether he and Chorley could recreate that same kind of eerie, unexplainable-looking mark, using nothing but ordinary tools. Starting in 1978, the pair began sneaking into fields around Wiltshire and Hampshire at night, using a wooden plank, a length of rope, and eventually a simple sighting device made from a baseball cap with a loop of wire attached to help them walk in a straight line. Pressing the plank down and walking in careful, measured circles let them flatten wheat into clean, deliberate shapes without leaving obvious footprints scattered across the field. since the plank itself did most of the physical work of bending the stalks over. Their earliest formations were simple, but the pair enjoyed the process enough to keep refining their technique year after year, growing steadily more ambitious as the surrounding media attention grew alongside them. For 13 years, the two men quietly built a reputation neither of them could publicly claim credit for. Newspapers covered the appearing circles as a growing mystery. Self-described seriologists, researchers who studied crop circles as a serious field of inquiry, developed increasingly elaborate theories involving wind vortices, plasma discharges, or extraterrestrial visitors. Investigators Pat Delgado and Colin Andrews became two of the most publicly recognized names in this new field, eventually publishing a book together in 1989 called Circular Evidence, arguing strongly that many of the circles they had personally examined showed characteristics no ordinary hoaxer could realistically fake. Bauer's own wife eventually grew suspicious after noticing unusually high mileage on their family car, and once Bauer admitted the truth to her privately, he even built her a small crop circle of her own design, just to prove he was not making up the story. By 1991, tired of watching other people take credit for a phenomenon that had grown far beyond anything they originally intended, Bauer and Chorley decided it was time to come forward publicly. In September 1991, Bauer and Chorley held a public demonstration in a field near Warminster, England, flanked by journalists from around the world. Using nothing more than their original planks and ropes, the two men methodically created a new crop circle in front of live cameras, showing step by step exactly how the process worked. As part of that same demonstration, they supplied advanced construction diagrams describing the specific design they planned to build, which then matched the finished formation precisely once observers compared the two side by side, offering a second, independent layer of proof beyond simply watching them work. Pat Delgado, who had previously examined some of the pair's earlier formations and declared them authentic and unexplainable, was visibly disappointed once he learned the truth behind the very evidence he had vouched for in his own published research. That public demonstration did not end the debate the way it probably should have. Bauer and Chorley claimed responsibility for more than 200 crop circles created between 1978 and 1991, a genuinely large number on its own. During that same stretch of time, however, researchers had documented well over 1,000 additional crop circles appearing elsewhere, including formations in countries the two men had never visited. Skeptics of the confession pointed to that gap as proof that Bauer and Chorley could not possibly explain the entire phenomenon by themselves, and to some extent they were right, just not for the reason true believers wanted. Before we move further into this, if you're finding this interesting, take a second to subscribe. It really helps the channel grow. What actually happened is far less mysterious than an unexplained gap in the evidence might suggest. Bauer and Chorley's confession did not stop other people from making crop circles. It did the opposite, inspiring a wave of copycats, hobbyists, and eventually dedicated professional artists who saw an opportunity in exactly the technique the two men had just demonstrated to the entire world on camera. That shift from two friends pulling a private prank to an entire cottage industry building increasingly ambitious formations is exactly where the story goes next. Following Bauer and Chorley's public confession, crop circles did not fade away. They grew dramatically more complex, evolving from simple circles and rings into elaborate geometric patterns incorporating fractals, spirals, and intricate mathematical designs that would have been far beyond what a plank and rope alone could easily produce. Groups of dedicated artists began forming specifically to build these more ambitious formations, refining their tools and techniques with each new attempt. One of the most well-documented groups working in this space, calls itself circlemakers.org, a collective founded and led by artist John Lundberg, openly building crop formations for decades, including commissioned work for advertising campaigns commissioned by real companies looking for a striking, photogenic way to promote a product from the air. Their techniques have grown considerably more sophisticated than Bauer and Chorley's original plank and rope setup, incorporating GPS positioning, detailed pre-planned diagrams, and specialized tools designed to flatten crops precisely along complex curved lines without damaging the surrounding plants beyond the intended pattern. This professional, openly acknowledged crop circle art movement matters enormously for understanding everything that followed, because it establishes clearly that human beings are fully capable of producing crop formations far more intricate than anything Bauer and Chorley ever attempted, using tools available to any reasonably resourceful group willing to plan carefully and work through a single night. That capability becomes directly relevant to one particular formation that generated more worldwide attention than almost any other crop circle in modern history. In August 2001, two elaborate formations appeared in a field beside the Chilbolton radio telescope in Hampshire, England, roughly 200 meters apart from each other. One depicted what many observers described as a humanoid face built from a large grid of small, flattened squares, functioning almost like pixels in a low-resolution image. The other displayed a dense rectangular block of similar pixel-like squares that closely resembled the structure of the famous Arecibo message, a binary-coded radio transmission that astronomer Carl Sagan and colleagues had beamed into space from the Arecibo Observatory back in 1974, aimed at a distant star cluster in hopes of reaching intelligent life somewhere beyond our solar system. The resemblance between the crop formation's grid and the original Arecibo transmission was genuinely striking, close enough that many crop circle researchers and enthusiasts immediately interpreted the new formation as a direct reply, as though some distant intelligence had intercepted humanity's message and sent back a modified version of the same coded structure, altered just enough to suggest a different biology in a different home star system. Enthusiast decodings of the formation have offered various translations, some describing warnings about deception, others focusing on claimed biological differences from the original human message. And researcher Paul Weigel published an entire book specifically analyzing the formation's structure and possible meaning in detail. Mainstream skeptics have pushed back on that interpretation directly, pointing out that the entire formation sits comfortably within the kind of complexity professional crop circle artists, like the members of circlemakers.org, had already been producing for advertising clients in the years leading up to 2001. Nobody has ever produced a confirmed, publicly named confession specifically tied to the Chilbolton formation the way Bauer and Chorley confessed to their own earlier work, which is exactly the kind of gap that keeps genuine believers holding on to the extraterrestrial interpretation even today. What actual scientists did next, testing crop circles directly using real laboratory methods, tells a very different story about how far the evidence has ever actually gone. Physicist Terence Meaden spent years developing what became known as the plasma vortex theory, proposing that naturally occurring spinning columns of ionized air, similar in concept to a small, localized whirlwind shaped and directed by nearby hills, could flatten crops into surprisingly geometric shapes without any human involvement at all. Meaden linked his theory back to a much older 1686 report from naturalist Robert Plot, describing naturally occurring rings of mushrooms, arguing that similar airflow patterns might explain both phenomena. Meaden's theory drew serious scientific attention for a period, since it offered a natural explanation that did not require either a hoax or anything genuinely paranormal, and even physicist Stephen Hawking weighed in publicly in 1991, stating plainly that crop circles were either hoaxes or the result of vortex movement in the air. The theory ran into serious trouble once crop circles grew significantly more complex during the 1990s, developing into multi-armed pictograms and intricate fractal designs that a simple spinning column of air has no obvious mechanism for producing with that level of geometric precision. Meaden's plasma vortex explanation never gained lasting acceptance within mainstream physics, specifically because it could not account for the growing sophistication of the formations appearing in the field. And critics have compared some of his later, increasingly elaborate justifications to the kind of reasoning used by writers promoting ancient astronaut theories, stretching a plausible starting idea well past what the physical evidence could reasonably support. A separate research group called the BLT Research Team, led by Nancy Talbot, has spent decades examining plant samples collected from crop circle sites, reporting findings that include unusually elongated cell structures at the joints of bent stalks and elevated concentrations of tiny, magnetic, iron-rich spheres in surrounding soil samples. These claims have circulated widely among crop circle researchers for years, though they have never been replicated and confirmed through the kind of independent, peer-reviewed laboratory testing that would let mainstream plant biologists or physicists treat them as settled scientific fact. That persistent gap between an interesting claim and independent scientific confirmation is a theme that shows up again and again throughout crop circle research, and it becomes especially important once artificial intelligence enters the conversation. Before going any further into a specific recent claim, it is worth being direct about what an AI chatbot genuinely contributes to a topic like crop circles, since a large amount of recent online content leans on exactly this kind of tool to generate dramatic-sounding commentary. A chatbot like Grok, or any similar large language model, is built to read text, a person feeds it, then summarize, rephrase, or comment on that text using natural, conversational language. That is a genuinely useful skill for everyday tasks, but it is not the same thing as running new physical measurements, analyzing raw satellite imagery pixel by pixel, or independently verifying claims made by earlier researchers. Someone types a leading question into a chatbot, asking it to analyze crop circle photos and describe what looks mathematically impressive or scientifically anomalous about them, and the chatbot responds using confident, dramatic language, because that is the tone the question itself invited. Some content built this way goes even further, describing supposed findings generated by AI involving elongated plant cells, microwave radiation signatures, and magnetic soil particles arranged in impossible patterns, presented as though a neural network had independently discovered these details through rigorous analysis. In reality, that language closely echoes the older, unreplicated BLT Research Team claims described earlier, repackaged with terminology that sounds like artificial intelligence layered on top, rather than genuinely new evidence produced through any actual machine learning process. That gap between restating old, unverified claims in a dramatic new voice and genuinely discovering something new is exactly where a specific viral claim about crop circles slips past a lot of casual viewers, and it deserves a closer, more skeptical look on its own. A specific story has spread widely online describing an unofficial engineering team at Google's DeepMind division feeding roughly 12,000 documented crop circle images spanning 50 years and multiple countries into an advanced pattern recognition system supposedly tagged with detailed metadata covering location, date, size, soil composition, and weather. According to this story, the resulting analysis flagged around 127 formations containing what it described as deliberate, mathematical, or symbolic encoding, judged too precise to have occurred by chance, along with claims about formations clustering suspiciously close to Stonehenge and other ancient monuments. No version of this story links to an actual published paper, a named lead researcher, or any official statement from Google or DeepMind confirming the project ever happened. DeepMind is a real, highly respected AI research division with a long publication history covering topics like protein folding and game-playing systems. And any genuine project of the scale this story describes would almost certainly appear somewhere in that public research record. It does not. The claim exists only as narrated video content and written summaries describing an unofficial, unnamed internal team. Exactly the kind of untraceable sourcing that should raise real skepticism, regardless of how interesting the underlying claim sounds. Worth noting directly, the specific clustering detail this story claims to have discovered, that a large share of documented crop circles appear within a short distance of Stonehenge and other ancient monuments, is not actually a new discovery and I needed to uncover at all. Human researchers studying crop circle geography identified that exact clustering pattern years earlier through ordinary, non-AI research methods, tied directly to the reasons already discussed regarding easy access and built-in audiences near famous landmarks. A viral video presenting old, already published human research as a brand new AI discovery is a pattern worth watching for across plenty of other topics, not just this one. While no legitimate AI research exists specifically analyzing crop circles, genuinely serious artificial intelligence research involving actual crops and actual farmland is happening right now, published openly in peer-reviewed scientific journals, rather than circulating as unverifiable video claims. Agricultural researchers have trained deep learning models to analyze drone and satellite imagery, helping farmers detect crop diseases, identify pest infestations, and map exactly which sections of a large field need more water, fertilizer, or attention before a problem spreads and damages an entire harvest. This kind of research combines robotics, sensor data, and image recognition into a genuinely useful tool that farmers already rely on today, a world away from a single dramatic chatbot response about an old mystery. Separate research teams have applied similar computer vision techniques to advance completely different fields, including specialized systems trained to automatically detect craters on the Moon and Mars from satellite imagery, sparing human researchers from having to manually count and measure millions of individual features across planetary surfaces. Even in that specialized, genuinely funded area of AI research, scientists studying lunar crater detection models have published papers openly discussing the technology's current limitations, noting that automated results still require careful human verification before researchers can fully trust them without double-checking. That contrast matters enormously here. Real AI research applied to farmland, plant health, and planetary surfaces exists, gets published, gets peer-reviewed, and openly discusses its own current shortcomings rather than claiming a flawless, world-changing discovery in a single unverified video. Nothing resembling that kind of rigor has ever been applied specifically to crop circles by any credible research institution, which raises an obvious question about exactly what a genuinely careful AI crop circle study would actually need to look like before anyone should trust its conclusions. Any credible attempt to apply AI seriously to crop circle research would need several things the viral DeepMind story conspicuously lacks. It would need a clearly defined, publicly available dataset that other researchers could independently access and verify, rather than a vaguely described collection of 12,000 images nobody outside the original claim has ever been able to inspect. It would need a named research team with an institutional affiliation willing to put their professional reputation behind the specific methods used and the specific conclusions reached. It would also need to grapple honestly with a problem that makes crop circle research fundamentally different from studying lunar craters or plant disease. A large, confirmed portion of the underlying dataset consists of formations openly created by human artists, including thousands attributable to acknowledged hoaxers and known professional groups like circlemakers.org. Any AI system trained to find deliberate mathematical patterns across a mixed dataset like that would need a rigorous way to separate formations confirmed as human-made from the smaller number where origin remains genuinely disputed, or its conclusions about supposed impossible precision would be built on a foundation already known to include deliberately engineered human artwork from the very start. None of that means a genuinely careful computational study of crop circle geometry could never be done properly. It means the bar for trusting any such claim is considerably higher than a single unverified video with no named researcher, no published paper, and no way for anyone outside the original source to check the underlying data for themselves, exactly the standard that separates real scientific progress from an appealing story that simply sounds convincing. No credible AI research has ever analyzed every crop circle on Earth, and no version of the viral DeepMind claim traces back to any real, published study or named research team. What is completely real and independently verified through public confessions, decades of documented artistic work, and repeated scientific testing that never confirmed anything paranormal, is a genuinely fascinating human story spanning nearly 50 years, with roots stretching back centuries further into old pamphlets and puzzled letters to scientific journals. Doug Bauer and Dave Chorley started the modern phenomenon in 1978 using a plank and a rope, confessed publicly in 1991, and inadvertently launched an entire creative movement of professional crop circle artists who have spent decades building increasingly complex formations using nothing more advanced than careful planning and simple flattening tools. Scientists including Terence Meaden tested natural explanations involving spinning air currents and found them unable to account for the formation's growing complexity, while researchers like Nancy Talbot's BLT research team have reported unusual plant and soil findings that have never been independently replicated through mainstream peer review. The Chilbolton formations of 2001 remain genuinely disputed, sitting well within known human artistic capability while never receiving a specific, named confession the way Bauer and Chorley's earlier work did. What actually deserves genuine curiosity here is not a fabricated AI discovery. It is the real, documented story of how two friends with a plank and a rope accidentally created a worldwide mystery that professional artists, dedicated researchers, and millions of curious observers have kept alive and evolving for nearly half a century, using nothing more exotic than human creativity, patience, and a genuine talent for working undetected in a dark field overnight. If mysteries like this one interest you, subscribing helps more stories like it find their way to you the moment they come out.